Yo, what's up guys? Today I'm going to be giving you my best recommended settings for Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer. These settings are guaranteed to give you higher visibility, higher FPS, less crashing, and more. And as a little added bonus, I've also included some settings that will help you improve your aim tremendously. So let's hop into it. All right guys, listen up. Forget everything you've been told. For a guy that's been playing Call of Duty for many years, I've always chose home theater as my audio settings, not in this game. For some reason it's absolutely terrible, and it seems to mesh all of the audio together, and it's very hard to hear footsteps. What you're going to want to choose is headphone bass boost. Other than that, I do feel like you have to boost the master volume a little bit in this game, so I have mine set to 80. If you click show more, music volume I have set to 0. I don't want any unexpected music or sounds to take away from hearing enemy footsteps. Dialogue volume, I have that set to 50. This is going to be, you know, enemy UAV inbound, enemy mortar strike incoming, stuff like that. Effects volume, I have set to 100. Hit marker volume, I have set to 50. I feel like that's plenty enough to hear hit markers. If you're struggling to hear the hit markers though, you can definitely boost this up. I would just recommend not going above 90. Voice chat volume, I also have set to 20. Speakers, headphones, game sound, you're going to want to set that to your primary or default device. Mono audio, I wouldn't mess with this. I've seen a lot of people that have recommended setting it to on with a mono amount of 0. It didn't work out for me. I felt like it cut out the sound too much. Subtitles don't really pertain to us at all. Voice chat, in order to use voice chat, this obviously has to be toggled on. Game voice channel is obviously your preference. I have mine set to all lobby. Proximity chat has to be on with either push to talk or always on before you can talk to enemies. And I've actually seen a lot of confusion around the last words voice chat. In order to hear an enemy's last words, you have to toggle on last words voice chat. Couple more settings that I would like to point out. Juggernaut music, I like to toggle off. Again, I don't want music taken away from hearing enemy footsteps and stuff like that. Hit marker sounds, a lot of people have been rocking Modern Warfare, but to me, I like the sound of classic. I feel that it doesn't take away from the other sounds in the game, and it just sounds nicer. That's a personal preference though. The big one that you guys are going to want to toggle on though is reduced tinnitus sound. Basically, if this is off and you boost the audio like we have, it's gonna be like this high-pitched tinging noise every time you get flashed, and it's super annoying and super uncomfortable. So moving on from audio, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go into interface. The first few settings don't really pertain to us at all. The big one here is going to be under HUD, vertical heads up display and horizontal heads up display. So think of these like pushing in the mini map and the weapon and basically the entire HUD. It pushes it into the center of the screen for you. And basically what this is good for is if I'm looking in the center of the screen, it's less strenuous on my eyes if I just have to glance up instead of going all the way over here to the corner of the screen, right? You just want to be careful with this setting because you don't want it to get too low, because obviously that's going to take away from the center of the screen on what you can see. Mini map shape, you want this set to square. Mini map rotation on, horizontal compass on, crosshairs on, hit marker visuals on, full name, fade after 5 seconds. Under telemetry, if you want to be able to show your FPS counter, your server latency, packet loss, stuff like that, that's all going to be under telemetry show more. Additionally, I've been messing around with this center dot setting. I put it back to off because I didn't really see the value in it, but it basically does exactly what it sounds like. It puts a dot on the center of your screen, so you'll always know where the center of your screen is at, even if you don't have a gun. But the main setting under interface that I wanted to show, as minimal as it may sound, is color customization. It's an absolute must, you guys. So in here, you can actually go through and show like different colors for yourself, your teammate, your party. For example, my enemies show up as pink. To me personally, it felt like it was more of an alert over red, so I set it to pink. So the biggest one is going to be under neutral. This is basically like pings and stuff in Warzone. Have you ever had those instances where somebody pings something and it kind of blends into all the buildings, the trees, or whatever in the map? This is why. As default, for whatever reason, they put it to white, which is like the enemy flags and stuff. You can see that here. What I decided to go with was like this teal color. It's much better. Maybe you want to go with green or something, you can do that. Just play around with it and find out what works out for you. So moving on from color customization, we're gonna go into graphics. All right, so once you're into graphics, display mode, if you're running it on PC, you obviously want that set to full screen. Everybody should know this. It's gonna run the smoothest. Display monitor, you want set to your primary display, with your display adapter being set to your primary graphics card if you have more than one. Dynamic resolution, you want set to off. My aspect ratio, I have wide 16:9. VSync, you want this off. This will absolutely drain your FPS and make it run like shit. VSync menus off. I do have a custom frame rate set of 144 because I have a 144 monitor. Again, this is going to be dependent on your monitor. Next, we're going to head over to quality. Quality presets we have is custom. Render resolution at 100. Upscaling sharpening, I have fidelity cast with this at 100. A lot of people have said if this does result in your game having poor performance, what you can do is you can actually take this down to around 60 or so, or around 90. Just play around with it and figure out what works best on your system. Anti-aliasing, you want SMAAT2X. Quality low. Video memory scale at 90. Texture resolution very low. Normal, low, low, long, low, very low, off, off, low, off. A lot of these settings are going to be set to low or off because these settings are for boosting performance and not making the game look necessarily beautiful, but it does also make it look very clear. Terrain memory, you want that on minimum. Texture streaming off. Streaming quality low, 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 off. Shadow map resolution very low, off, low, medium, low, off. One thing else that I have read a lot is people saying if your game keeps crashing, clipping, anything like that, you can take the spot cache and you can boost that to high, but don't go up to ultra. So I hope that helps as well. So moving on, screen space reflections off, low, off. NVIDIA reflex low latency. I've seen a lot of people saying that this helps if you put it on plus boost. For me personally, I didn't experience anything good out of it. I just noticed that my estimated VRAM usage was going up and I didn't see a positive or a negative, so I selected on. Depth of field we have off, blur off, weapon motion blur off, and film grain, you want this set to 0. This one's very important. Easiest way to describe this one is if you've ever experienced any dust or anything going across the screen in game, this is why. You want to set this to 0. You're not focused on the game looking better, you're focused on being able to see other players across the map. And then the last settings that I have under graphics for you is my field of view. I do have it set to 120. Reason being is not only because I can see around me better and clearer, also because the game feels much more of a faster pace, which I like. It keeps me involved and keeps me like focused on the game more than moving in a slow pace. So if the 120 doesn't work for you, I would recommend not going under 110. ADS field of view I've got set to affected, weapon field of view on wide, third person field of view 90, default for vehicle, first person camera movement 50%, third person 50%, third person ADS and helmet camera. I like the looks of it when I'm spectating somebody. Lastly, real quick, as promised, your controller settings should be as followed. First few settings are going to be personal preference, obviously, like aiming input, device, controller, edit button layout, default, so on and so forth. But what we're going to be talking about is your aiming. For me personally, I've got mine to 8 on the horizontal and 7 on the vertical, strictly because I feel like I can still turn around very fast, but my aiming doesn't go everywhere. with that vertical at 7. Again, you're gonna have to try this out and figure out what works out for you. My ADS sensitivity multiplier is at a 0.90, and I haven't really messed with the sensitivity multiplier. I tried it out a little bit, and every time I used it, I did not like it at all. So I took it all back to default. Vertical aim axis is going to be personal preference. Aim down sight, I choose to hold mine. Change zoom, shared input, sprint, tactical sprint, and focus. Automatic sprint, I do the automatic tactical sprint. The only thing that I will say about this is while you sprint super fast and you're able to get around the map super fast, it does take some practice of being personally aware of your surroundings and being able to kind of anticipate those gunfights that are coming up. Because if you don't know already, coming out of a tactical sprint and expecting to win a gunfight is next to impossible. Equipment behavior is going to be hold. Weapon mount activation, ADS plus melee. Interact reload behavior, you want this on prioritize interact. Reason being, if you've ever seen a Warzone player that is able to quickly go through a building and loot everything in no time at all, this is why. They have prioritize interact, which is basically just tapping A real quick, picking up weapons. Situation that I would bring up is if you ever get into a situation where you're trying to swap out a gun or trying to pick up plates to plate up really quick, but you hit reload, that's why you need to have prioritize interact. And additionally, if you do need to reload while there is stuff around you, you can still hold the button to reload rather than interacting with an object. And then the last one here is going to be armor plate behavior. I select mine to apply all. I felt like it's super clunky if you have it selected to apply one at a time. And I also noticed what I would experience is when I would try to apply a plate, I wouldn't be able to apply them back to back very smoothly, or I would start applying a plate, wouldn't be able to put the plate down, and I would die because of it. But the real big stuff comes in advanced under controller. Target aim assist, you want that selected to on. Aim assist type, I don't know if it was definitively said by Activision themselves or if it was just a silent nerf, but it appears that Black Ops has been nerfed from everything that I've seen. So you're going to want to make sure that you select default for your aim assist type. Third person ADS correction type, you're going to want to assist. Gyro behavior, I don't use a PS5 controller, so that's not going to pertain to us, whoever's using an Xbox controller. And then another big one on the advanced settings is going to be under this aim response curve type. I know a lot of you aren't going to like this at first, but you have to get used to it. You're going to want dynamic set here, and the reason being is it basically speeds up the aiming on the front end and allows you to be more precise on the back end. Once you get this setting down, you'll notice your skill when aiming is a vast improvement from what it was previously. ADS sense multiplier at 1, ADS sensitivity transition at instant off, which leads us into our next huge one, input dead zones. So if you click show more here, you'll see left stick minimum, right stick minimum, left stick max, so on and so forth. You have to adjust these. Have you ever felt like your aiming is super delayed or the stick's lagging behind when you're aiming in on someone? That's because you haven't messed with the input dead zones. General rule of thumb, how you set these properly is you go into a firing range or a bot match private lobby, you take one stick into question, you move it all the way down to 0. You move it back up until your stick doesn't drift. So say we're setting the left stick, I'm going to set that down to 0. I'm going to go up by 1s until he's not moving, and that's the perfect minimum dead zone. And then we'll go through and we'll do the same with the right stick. Doing it this way will not only ensure that you're super responsive, but it will also ensure that you're not missing your shots due to any stick drift or anything like that. The best way I can describe this to you is using a drawing. So think of this like a center of a circle with a dot. The dot in this case is going to be your left or right stick of your controller that you're adjusting. Around this dot are 2 circles. The minimum is the one that you'll be adjusting closest to the stick, and the maximum is the outer circle saying, hey, this is the furthest that I can travel. Obviously, the higher the minimum, the further the stick has to travel, which typically will result in the laggy movement you experience. So basically, you want these minimum dead zones as close to the dot as you can without experiencing any drift. And then as far as the maximum goes, I don't really find any value in adding the right stick max. When I was moving this lower, it actually felt like it did the opposite, and I started getting that lag and that drift, and it it didn't feel very clean again. But on the left stick max, I did choose to set this at a 0.7 because not only did I feel like I could sprint faster, I could also strafe more quickly and responsive. So just try that out and see if it works for you. Left trigger and right trigger, you're gonna want both of these set to 0. So every time you pull the trigger, it's an instant response, which will allow you to not waste any time when you're going ADS or firing. Grounded mantle is off. Automatic airborne mantle is partial. Automatic ground mantle off. Invert slide behavior, standard. Movement off. Sprinting door bash for sure. Ledge hang mantle behavior, mantle only. Combat behaviors, ADS, stick stop, blah 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 blah. All this stuff's gonna be personal preference as well for sure. All right, and there you guys have it. My best recommended settings for Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer, just to help you guys out. Make sure if this video does help you out, you smash that like button for me. And also feel free to subscribe to me for more Warzone 2 and Modern Warfare 2 clips and tips. As always, I'm Benny Ben. Make sure you make somebody smile today, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.